Sarah, CSI strategy sounds very formal and very corporate. Do grant makers really need a strategy?
Gina, I think they do, in fact. I think if you're talking about corporate social investment, like any other investment, you need to think about it and you need to have a plan and you need to know what you're trying to achieve and how you're going to get there. And essentially, I think that's what a strategy is. If by corporates giving away money, they simply want to spend a certain amount and they don't really care how it's done and they're just happy to give it away to the nearest needy cause, then I would say that's, old style philanthropy, and you probably wouldn't need to really think too carefully about a strategy.
So once a corporation has gotten their head wrapped around the fact that they need a strategy, how should they start? Where is the best place to start?
I think the best place to start is to understand the context that you're currently in. I think there are a number of elements to that. So, if they have been doing some kind of corporate social investment, it's good to know what that was and perhaps to do an evaluation or, just to look at what they're currently doing. And I think also to really understand their own business context. So if you are a practitioner in a business, you need to understand what are the values of that business. What is that business trying to achieve as a corporate citizen in the country or in its particular industry? So I think understanding your context, where you've come from, what you've already been doing, and then the context within the business. But I'd also say more broadly, you really need to spend some time understanding some of the development needs and imperatives and what people who know about these things, whether it be in education or health or social development or enterprise development, go and speak to experts and find out about what is really happening and the latest thinking in those particular areas.
Okay. And when a company is developing a strategy and they are trying to decide who to fund or what sector to fund, is it important that that organization or that sector relates to their business, or can it be something completely different?
I think the current trend is that it relates to the business. Certainly, if you speak to some of the big American corporates, I did that at the end of 2009, and they were saying, that their corporate social investment is a natural outcome of their business. So, for example, if they make computers, their corporate social investment is all about putting technology into classrooms and putting, computer technology into classrooms. And that's where you can see there's a very natural alignment. But I think there are lots of various opportunities. You don't only have to do that, because I think, for example, with Anglo-American and the Anglo-American Chairman's Fund, it's taken a much broader view, and it said actually, as a South African company operating at a national level in this country, we're concerned by a whole range of development needs. And so, in fact, we're not just going to worry about how many mining professionals come out of our education system. We're worrying about health, we're worrying about the disabled, we're worrying about a whole range of issues. So I think there are two different approaches you can take there.
Okay. For a professional working in an organization who's been tasked with managing and running with a company's CSI program, obviously they can't do that on their own. They have to get buy-in from management.
Yeah.
How should they go about getting that buy-in?
Yeah, I think, Gina, you've raised an important point. I think it's critical to ensure that CSI just isn't a completely sidetracked peripheral thing. And I think we've seen increasingly in South Africa that it is becoming slightly more center stage in the business world. There is an increased interest in it. So I think that's an advantage, because I do think the business side of the business is becoming more and more aware and interested in what is happening on the corporate social investment side. I think really you need to, again, strategize around how you get champions to advocate in the business, how you think about how you communicate internally within your business. And I think one very powerful way is to develop a volunteer program that runs alongside your corporate social investment, because that's when you start getting, company and employee-wide buy-in.
Okay. Now, when a company starts strategizing around their CSI program, what elements need to be in that strategy? What steps along the way do they need to think about?
Yeah, I think the first thing is they need to understand its structure. And by that I mean, where are you actually going to situate the model or the delivery method of your corporate social investment in your company? Is it going to be a line function? If it's a line function or a line department, where does it sit? Is it a standalone, department in itself, or is it within the human resources or HR or marketing departments? Or are you going to set up, something quite separate? And for example, the Tshikululu model is another way of delivering corporate social investment as an outsource. So I think understanding the structure of it, and from that would flow a whole lot of governance and legal issues. So you need to know what option you're going to choose, and for that to be kind of sorted out. And then really I think you actually have to figure out what your budget is, because the amount of money that you've got to spend is absolutely going to impact on the type of projects you choose, the number of focus areas that you select. So I think that is a good place to start around structure and budgets. And then thirdly, you would then start to look at your different focus areas and tied into what you were asking about earlier. Is this something that's going to be very closely aligned? If we're in health, we've got to do health type of projects, etc., or actually we are going to take a geographical focus, where we work just around, where our operations actually are, and then do a range of interventions, or do we want to take a more national type of focus?
Okay, great. And where does monitoring and evaluation fit into the strategizing process?
Monitoring and evaluation comes in right at the very beginning. And I think that is something that is perhaps overlooked, and I think it's an opportunity if you are, certainly if you're setting up a new strategy or you're revising your strategy, to think about how are you going to monitor the outcomes of the projects that you choose against objectives that you've set up front. So your strategy will be setting up those objectives for you, because you'll say, right, I've thought about this and I plan to do A, B, or C. And your monitoring, you must think of right at that time, okay, if I plan to do A, B, or C, how am I actually going to monitor that is in fact done over a period of time?